Watch was.
Welcome to this hobby of ours and this episode of Watch Wars. I'm your host D, finally getting to do the showdown between the Noctua PD-1 in this corner and the Seiko Spork SRP043 over here. I don't know if this was the very first watch to be called a Spork, but it is certainly one of the more famed Sporks in the pantheon of divers that also have pilot non-chronograph affectations, if you will. And a reminder, we have 26 criteria in a watch war. These criteria span across exterior, interior, movement, and market. There's always going to be a market analysis, a value of what you're getting for your dollar. But there's also never going to be a draw. I sometimes forget to remind folks that there's never going to be a draw. There are no ties in this world. There are no performance trophies. Because there can be draws through the course of the criteria, the total score will never be a totality of the 26 points. It could be 9-9, it could be 10-5, it could be whatever. And if that final score ends up a draw, then we'll do a tiebreaker. I've only had a couple of those, but the last war between this little baby and the Zin almost got to that point. And I dare say upon reflection that the 1 point advantage that the Zin got more or less attributed to that justified date. But if that was not a thing, and if I ruled that a draw, which I could see the case for that, then we'd be going to a showdown. And I don't know, I may have to re-war those two, we'll see. But today on deck, we are warring Noctua versus Seiko. And where I was calling this the Zin Killer, I very well may need to call it the Seiko Killer. Somewhat ironically, it has got a Seiko movement inside. Let us dive in. Let's start by putting some dims up on the board. Put some numbers up on the board, D. Let's get a little bit of hands-on. I'm going to run you through the basic dims, super quick like, and then we shall get to the evaluation of the criteria. This is a big boy. This is one of my bigger Seikos. I can still pull it off despite that ridiculous 50.5 lug to lug. And if you look at these side by side, this is only a 42.5, and it looks rather petite, if I may say. But this one's quite a bit thicker, as we can see, both of them having palatable strap widths, 22 and 20. Surprisingly, Noctua, 300 meters, dang. Seiko, 200 meters on this one, kind of crazy. We got Sapphire and Hardlex. I more or less consider Hardlex to be, Japan's answer for Sapphire and just as good. This has the Seiko NH35. This has got the Seiko. More on that later. And with 38 hours over here and 50 hours possible over here, I say possible because how long do you have to shake this sucker to get all the way to 50? I'm almost willing to write that off as nil, because who's going to shake it all the way to 50 and then begin their day? Weight this time is coming in on watch head only, more on that later. Price band. These are a little closer in price band. Back in the day, I picked this up far more affordable than it is now, and they don't make these anymore. But guess what? They do make these. And neither one of these are limited in of its nature, but just the nature is these don't turn up all that often. Sometimes you have to get them out of the UK, and they've gotten quite a bit pricey. So let us dive into the formal watch war itself. Kicking it off with bracelet. I had to find this one. It's still in its plastic, as is this. But I'm calling the bracelet a draw. I wouldn't be surprised if these bracelets come out of the same factory. This one has like that bead blasted look to it. This one is somewhat matte. So calling the bracelet a draw. Nothing spectacular from Seiko. And frankly, something very spectacular from Noctua considering our price range. I ended up having to buy this separate than the watch. When I bought this, it come on a rubber strap. But I got this from a vendor in Japan who was able to source the correct bracelet for me. The funny thing about this bracelet, you need the unusually large jumbo spring bars. They sell them on Amazon, but they're stupid thick, like super duper thick. Clasp. I'm also calling this a draw. Reason being that it is built the same way. I'm sorry, focus please. Granted, this is stamped Seiko, but a machine did that. That's not hand engraved, so I'm not really getting anything there. This one is, of course, lasered on there or printed on there in some fashion. But they both have push button. They both have this fold over, so not a lot of benefit in one way or the other directionality. So calling this a draw. Looking at the bezel, I'm also calling this a draw. If we look at these two up close and personal, yeah, they're pretty much the same. We're going to see a little something in the loom shot in a minute, but nothing standing out about the Seiko to draw it into a superior fashion than this one. But when it comes to a bezel insert, the point is going to Noctua because it is loomed, and Seiko said, nope, we're not looming that, not loomed. So point to Noctua when it comes to the bezel insert. Now, looking at the crystal, as I mentioned earlier, I consider sapphire and hardlex neck and neck, therefore calling that a draw. Now, the case. I am going to give the case to the Seiko. It has a little bit of a sharper line going on there. We've got a polished edge there and what is ostensibly brushed, whereas this is bead blasted. I do find the bead blasting to be a little more attractive, especially if you're a military operator where you can't have any light shining off of your watch while you're on duty. But there's just a little more definition in the case over here, so giving that the point. The case back, as I mentioned in the previous ones, this is a micro brand, so very simple, printed on one. And God willing, as JP grows the company and looks to install those finer points, he'll do that. This today is on a strap by our friends at Two Stitch Straps. Shout out to Ivan, who generally sent this in to me for use in the studio, and I gave one away. But this is their single pass military style strap, formerly known as a North Atlantic Treaty Organization strap. Can't call them that anymore, but I have to take the strap off so you can see the case back. And we've got that raised relief, the Hokusai wave, so that is kind of a nice to have, even though it doesn't perform any functionality. So that is going to give the Seiko 1 point there on the case back itself. Getting this lovely two-stitch strap back on. Absolutely gorgeous. There's always a link to twostitchstraps.com in all of my videos. They are a trusted supplier. And make sure you stop into one of the descriptions to grab your discount code, get you some money off of your stuff. Back to the war. Looking at the crown, I'm calling it a draw. Both of these crowns are going to be good. This is a little bit larger and finely knurled. This has a little more, let's see if I can get up in your business, Seiko, larger knurls, but surprisingly not signed on this model. No Seiko S. That may have gotten it a lead in that one, but calling it a draw. Now, crown guards, once again, going to Noctua. Why? Because it is protecting the crown better. Look at how barely any sticks out from there, but you can still get a hold of it. Look at that. Look at that. You're going to bang that crown off of something. So shame on you, Seiko. So the crown guards point going to Noctua. Now, I have a 6.5 inch wrist, so I am naturally predisposed to politer diameters, if not smaller lug to lug, generally speaking. So the diameter point going to Noctua, it's a full, I almost said 1.5 inches, a millimeter and a half smaller than the Seiko, so point to Noctua. Height, also going to, let me see, I love wearing my gloves, my special gloves. The height is also going to Noctua, about 5.5 millis thinner. Well, it looks a bit more from this angle for some reason. So point is going to Noctua. Lug to lug is going point Noctua because, yeah, it wears more polite on my wrist. You shall see that at the end. Lug width is going to be a draw. 22 on the Noctua is just as good as 20. That is a standardized size. No UGG widths up in our business this time, so thankfully for that. Now water, It's 100 meters better. How does it not get the point? Of course it gets the point. So water resistance is going to Noctua. Both of these crowns are screwed down. Both of them will be fine going diving. 200 meters is the standard per se, but guess what? 300 is better than 200, so point over here. The weight. I do have the bracelets on hand. I wanted to weigh the watch head on here because this bracelet is super duper heavy. It's partly the reason I don't wear it. And I think a watch of this nature is perhaps going to want to live on straps. So I just weighed the watch heads. Over here, 85 grams. Over here, 97. So point going to Noctua. If it was a little bit closer, I might consider it a draw because this is a larger watch. But it is not close. It's at least 12 grams more. So might have to send this Seiko to the gym if you know what I mean. And there we have the first round exterior. And who knew? The Noctua is starting to trounce the Seiko 7-2. Moving to the interior. The dial, I'm going to award to Seiko. It's a little less busy, which I think is generally good. I think that there's quite a bit more going around the dial and the use of the rehot in the manner in which he's done it that can make it just a slightly little bit busier than what's going on for Seiko, so point there. Rehot, I'm also going to award to Seiko. It's a bit cleaner, and this rehot with the dots kind of blends into the dial markings, so not quite as clear. Now loom, hold on to your pants. Let's insert a loom shot. And ba-bam, who knew that Noctua would wipe the ground, wipe the floor with Seiko in the loom category. Now, to be fair, this is quite a bit older of a watch than this. This one's brand spanking new. But with the combination of the loom on the bezel, the loom brightness overall, it's just beating Seiko in there. So handset, moving on to handset, these are more or less the same hands, and for the same reason as with the Zin, I'm calling that a draw. So at the end of round 2 interior, Seiko's on the comeback trail, but still trailing by 4 points as we look at 8 for Noctua, 4 for Seiko. Movement. Slam dunk Noctua. I hate the Seiko Shako. For me, that is so idiotic that I have to manually shake a watch to get it going. And to be fair, I almost don't want to do what I'm about to do. Power reserve, I'm going to award to the Seiko. Why? Because according to the specs, this is capable of 50 hours. You're never going to get anywhere near it. There's no way you're going to shake it that long. At most, you're going to do 100 shakes before you start your day, and then as you wear it throughout the day, it'll power. There's no way this is getting close to 50 hours. But according to the spec sheet, 38 versus 50, so point to the Seiko. Complications, going to be a draw. These are time plus date, and both dates are in the same position and angled, so draw there. Service cost. Also calling it a draw. I perceive that this Seiko movement would cost the same to service as this Seiko movement. And to be fair, I don't know if in either case they would service it or replace it. I can see that being neck and neck. So when it comes to the movement, we are looking at 925. What a way to make living. Noctua leading 925. Lastly, market analysis. Price. Slam dunk Noctua. Full disclosure, when I bought mine, this was years ago, probably before pandemic, I think I paid $425. I don't even know if JP was making the watches back then. So you simply can't get these for that price point anymore. This is a little bit over 500, 502 if you get it on bracelet. That is an add-on cost. You're looking about 610. This on the very, very low end, bad condition, rubber strap only, you're looking at about 700. And then on the high end, it can be 1,200 to 1,400. And to be fair, Seiko makes fabulous watches, right? But this particular iteration with that movement, with a bracelet that is too heavy to really enjoy, you're not getting your money's worth for $1,200 if you're looking for a Seiko diver. There are other Seiko divers that are fabulous at that price point that you would want to get before owning this. But because of this one's aesthetic of a spork, having the Seiko movement itself. Oh, I have to adjust your bezel, my dear friend. I'm sorry, little buddy. I hate when I play with the bezel and it gets on the whack. All right, back in business. Perfectly aligned. Can't say that about you, Seiko, can we? But be that as it may, moving on, price going to Noctua, value. Also going to Noctua and more or less connected to pricing. You're getting more for your money over here than you are over here because of the premium you would have to spend to get it. It's just not a lot of value compared to Noctua, and not a lot of value generally unless you've got some absurd passion or desire to have this particular reference, the SRP043. There are better Seiko options, and frankly, this is a better option entirely because it has the exact same aesthetic. This is indeed positioning itself as a Seiko Spork killer. Resale. Conversely, that point is going to the Seiko. Why? Certainly if I had to sell this, I would double or triple my money. But if you get into this pre-owned for 600-ish, even 700-ish, if you went that route, you could probably get your money out, if not make a few bucks, depending on the avenue in which you sell it. You have to sell in a forum to do better. You'd probably only net out due to fees on the other platforms. But these aren't really showing up in the pre-owned market. I perceive that because the brand isn't as well known as Seiko, that even if these were on the used market, they're not going to find their audience in the same way that a Seiko was, per se, unless someone was hunting it. So the resale value point is going to the Seiko over here. And after the market analysis, we can announce our winner. Drum roll, please. Noctua, 11-6, officially spanking the Seiko. I just made that. I didn't plan that. I just made that up now in my head. So Noctua is crushing the Seiko Shako, and it is truly a Seiko Shako Spork killer. Let's get the winner on wrist and see how those dimensions look on my 6.5-inch wrist. Ba-bam. You've no doubt seen this on my wrist several times over the past, couple months or weeks, whatever, how long I've had it. Wears amazingly well on my wrist, and mostly due to that very polite lug-to-lug. 42.5. I have a lot of watches that are in that space, that 43 millimeter space. Some I bought very early on in my watch collecting without really knowing that 40 is pretty much the best size for my wrist. But this is an excellent demonstration that lug-to-lug means more for wrist presence than sheer diameter by itself in a vacuum. I've owned several watches that were even, 40, 41, 42-ish, but the lug-to-lug was so absurdist, I couldn't wear it because it looked like I was Batman and the wings were flying off my wrist. But that's how the Noctua wears for me, and I'm going to have some interesting thoughts about it once we get to the final thoughts on the watch for. Let's see how the Shako looks. Ba-bam. She's a one. She's a big one. She's a big Bertha. And even though she looks gorgeous on this 2-stitch strap, I don't know that this watch makes a whole lot of sense for me personally as a watch, especially when we got this sort of thing in the market. I don't know. These sometimes dry up and aren't even available in the pre-owned space, which gives rise to wanting to have a reliable, always around option. I mean, these are being sold brand new by JP. Check the description for a link to his website. Tell him your boy D sent you. If I'm being honest, I'm looking at the strap and not the watch. Love these straps, Ivan. But yeah, I can barely pull this off, and ever since I got the 62 Moss reissue, that's kind of graduated to be my Seiko diver. I always said this was going to be my Seiko diver, and I don't have any interest in selling it. I'm priced in, but more or less, I didn't catch the wave of the SKX. I never got to enjoy one of those in the beginning of my collecting journey. G-Money has one. I've certainly held them and worn them briefly. I often think I should get one just to get one before they're completely gone. I favor that model over the new Seiko 5 replacement line that you basically can't go diving with. But this one is not bad. It's not awful. If this popped for let's say someone was unloading a collection, didn't know what it was worth, and you could get it for $350, $375, I would definitely grab it. I occasionally hunt for these to see if they've dipped just as a, an opportunity to buy it and make a few bucks, because I have owned a couple of these and I've made money on them. But the market kind of spiked at 1,200, occasionally went up to 1,400. And when they drift down to 700, there's just not enough meat on the bone, so I kind of don't bother. I've kind of gotten away from that sort of buying habits, buying to make money. I'm not a dealer. I don't want to be a dealer. It's kind of, frankly, it's a chore if I'm being honest. But this is how it looks on wrist. Let's slide it up. Let's go up Avenue with it and do our little Castro thing. Double ba-bam. Once again, 6.5-inch wrist, although this is heading up towards my forearm. That's what these bad boys look like on wrist. And congratulations to JP and what he's done here. And even if maybe you disagreed with my assessment that this was a Zin killer, the numbers don't lie, and side by side we can see this is clearly a Seiko Spork killer, partly because it's friggin' awesome, but also these are too pricey and not great, right? They're just not great. It's a lower end Seiko diver that, because of its unique, set of features being a spork, which is why it's entertained and gained some fame, but you don't need it and you can't rely on availability. And even when they do pop, they are much more than this, and they're used, and you have to shake the thing to get it to work. Makes no sense. So that is kind of the backbeat. The numbers tell the story here, but there's also a little more story going there that, you can have a brand new one that's better, or you can overpay for an old one that's worse. That is that is the watch war summed up. I want to give a major shout out to JP from Noctua for generously letting me keep this for longer than we initially thought we would. But I think it was worthwhile to explore it and to put it up against some of the pantheons in the genre of the Spork. Please let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and thanks for coming along on the ride. Hope that wherever you are on this wonderful, beautiful hobby of ours, that you're doing well and that you're blessed. We will catch you in the next one. Peace. If you'd like to support the channel, head over to hobbyofhours.com. We've got artwork, coffee mugs, hats, t-shirts, and even a watch book. 1001 Watch Designs, Volume 1. Over 1,000 designs in here. Steampunk, super futuristic, kaleidoscope, even super real ones. Watches that you could probably put on your wrist today. It's a great way to support the channel. Thanks for coming along on the ride.